so freaking bad. Wrestle me.
Welcome, everybody, to the JPDUB. We have a very special episode today with Sretton and the Juice himself, which is myself, is one George C. Romero. Yeah, that's right. George C. Romero, son of legendary filmmaker George A. Romero. What's going on, George?
How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing great. You know, just having a tall, frothy Budweiser.
Very nice, very nice. I just had some fucking nice hot soup on this nice cold day. I hope I'm allowed to swear on this podcast because
oh man, what the fuck? Why'd you have to fucking say that shit?
I got the mouth of a train rider.
You'll fit in really well. Speaking of cold weather, we're up in. So you're down in what? Lexington, Kentucky, near there.
Yep, I am, and it is. It was unseasonably warm today. We had our fall season between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. today, so that was really nice. It was about 65 degrees, and now it's starting to drop back down. So just to give you a little, weather report from Kentucky.
Yeah.
Now our temperatures are going to start dropping again. So, it's good stuff though, man. I lived in LA for so long, I forgot. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I went out to LA and I used to crap on everybody for, not being able to stand the cold. And now I come back east, almost 15 years later, and man, the winters are cold.
Oh yeah. Hey man, come up to Chicago sometime. The cold is cold.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But cold is cold. I think you get to a certain point of cold, and it doesn't matter if it goes any colder. You just do like, fuck, it's cold.
Yeah, once it's freezing. I don't know, though. I will debate that and say that, when it drops below freezing, yeah, it's cold. But then when you get in like negative 18s and 20s, and it's like, okay, when you walk outside and you can feel your nose hairs automatically just chill out. Mr. Freestyle, man. Oh man, but yeah, it's a pretty brisk night up here in Northwest Indiana. We're in the studio, JPDUB Studios, recording with Mr. George C. Romero. Me and Sretton went for a walk. We didn't hold hands, even though sometimes that's what men do.
Sometimes,
yeah. And it was pretty fun. Getting ready to shoot the shit with yours truly and the master himself, George C. Romero. So, George, let everybody know out there what you're doing.
Well, we're doing a lot of really cool, exciting stuff right now. I think the most exciting and the newest, well, I don't know, it's all pretty fucking exciting, but the newest thing is the Indy Brigade. We're maybe 5 or 6 episodes deep into our own podcast. And our podcast is designed to be sort of the handshake for our community, actually. It is a place where independent creators, filmmakers, musicians, we all come together. And every couple of weeks we have an episode where we bring on some really, really awesome seasoned professionals, mostly in the filmmaking industry. We've certainly had some amazing musicians on the show, and we plan to have some more on as we open up the community for more music. So every couple of weeks we get together and we talk, we shoot shit, and we talk about the actual reality of the industry. Because, there's been forever, it's always been studio versus indie, right? And it used to be back in the day that indie guys were saying, well, no way indie can be as good as studio because studio has all the studio money and indies are just trying to get it figured out. Well, the playing field has changed, right? You can get a studio-looking film with like an iPhone nowadays, like an iPhone 11, or, you know what I mean? But you have to understand certain things that have been done certain ways since filmmaking's been filmmaking. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
So that's what we try to talk about a lot. And we try to kind of talk about the ways and the old-time methods that are still utilized by films, with budgets of $1 million up to films with budgets of $300 million.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain pieces to the puzzle that no matter how much money you have to spend or how much money you don't have to spend, there are certain things that if you just know what you're doing, it increases the production value of your project exponentially. And these are the kind of secrets and tricks that we're kind of starting the Indy Brigade with. But what that kind of translated into was the business talk of it, right? Because now what's happening is you get a lot of filmmakers out there who, you know, they want to embrace their style and all of that other stuff, and that's great. But there's only so many tips and tricks you can give people on how to set up a C-stand.
Right.
So what happens next is we start talking about the business of independent filmmaking, and now the conversation's gotten longer, and it's gotten deeper. And we bring in distribution professionals, and we bring in sales professionals, and we talk about how to help filmmakers make money with their art. And, you know, we talk about tried and true practices. We talk about tried and true scams that are out there. We talk about, you know, the bullshit that gets thrown at these indie guys. And we talk about the people who are out there doing it, you know, with honor. And we try to be those people, and we try to do our best by the people that we work with. And what that led to was actually launching a distribution and sales arm of Romero Pictures, sort of a label, if you will, that will put independent content out through Romero Pictures. And then for more of the sort of, you know, punk rock extreme independent content, then that'll be put out under the Indy Brigade label.
Nice.
So those are some of the really exciting things that are going on right now.
Hell yeah. That's
Not to mention our merch store where you can get cool hats.
Where's that merch store at? Drop
It's right on RomeroPictures.com.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, everything else is all secondary, really, to the fact that we've got cool hats.
I'm gonna have to pick me up on them damn hats now. I'm bald, so you know I'm a hat guy.
Yeah, me too.
Rock and roll, brother, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of the broad strokes, if you will, of what's going on with Romero Pictures and the Indy Brigade. But those things are really all kind of, everything's racing toward the same kind of off-ramp, if you will, and that off-ramp is going to land right in the middle of what I call the Veterans Compound, which is a nonprofit for veterans that I've been working to try to launch for a long time now. And with a little bit of luck, it looks like we're going to open the doors in 2020 for a facility that's going to accept 2 classes of 30 veterans a year, and not only help them sort of process a lot of what they've been through, you know, through the creative outlets of writing or filmmaking or music or woodworking or even cooking. You know, it's all about processing trauma through creativity. And then each one of these 2 classes every year will make a feature film. The cool thing about that is that not only will they get paid for their hours working on the film, these vets are going to accumulate hours toward potentially joining unions in the entertainment industry, and they're all going to get a piece of ownership of the film that their class makes, so that they get a little something in the long-term savings account when the movie sells.
That's super fucking awesome. Fuck.
Sorry?
I said that's really fucking cool, man. I really
Thanks,
really
man.
dig that idea. There's not,
Thank
you know
you
what?
very much.
No problem. We've talked to a few people. Shout out to Bill Foster, that do some work with the vets, and I would say a lot of people out there doing that, but even still, there's not enough. You know, there's not enough we could do to help these guys.
I mean, if there were enough people doing it, then all the vets would be taken care of.
Exactly. And
you know what I mean?
It's kind of funny that it takes everyday people like you and me and all the other guys that help out to do projects or something like this. It takes more of us, or it seems like there's more of us than there is the actual people who are saying, hey, sign your life, I mean your name on the dotted line. You know, to kind of integrate them back into society, or help them out, or it's always been a mind fuck for me. I can't understand that. It's like you chew them up and you spit them out, you know?
Well, yeah, like the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
But listen, it's like this, I mean, anybody who's ever been through some seriously heavy shit knows, at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, it's a perfect stranger that picks up your check at a restaurant, or a perfect stranger who sees you breaking down in your car and comes over and talks to you. Your family ain't going to do it.
Right.
Your friends, most of your friends aren't going to do it. It's going to be perfect strangers. And so that's why it makes total sense that there's people out there, there's enough people out there who care in this country, who are doing what they can, where they can, and when they can to try to help. I heard that these guys, when they get out there, or make you go to classes to like learn how to grocery shop again. You know, I mean, that's not helping anybody. That's all that's doing is making it worse.
Yeah.
You know, it's creating in their own mind that there's stigma behind what they've just been through.
Right.
You know, and so from the minute they get back here, they're taught all this shit, and it's nothing but a stigma in the minds of these guys who are already dealing with enough. It should be different.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm sorry, I get a little pissed off.
It's all right. Get fucking as mad as you want. I like it.
Well, it's also cool to Stretton here. It's also cool to hear about your organization.
Yeah.
And when we talked to Bill, it was kind of this. He had his own group that he started. Different people are trying different angles to help these men and women. Like it's not just, you know, and the idea of having a maker space type of setting to just have these guys have an outlet for creativity and retrain their brains against all that trauma that they've experienced. Like to have like Wallace and I are both huge makerspace fans, like and community spaces where, you know, every community in the entire United States, there's always a couple people that either are badasses at woodworking or badass musicians. There's so many people with so many crazy interests, bird watching, poetry, just name it. And there's usually one or two people in your community that are really good at that thing. And if you could get a space where different people can exchange that knowledge and bring in something like, you know, bring in vets too and be like, hey, you know, you guys you could be part of this community too. Like, you know, it's great. It's just positive shit in the world. And we could always use more positive shit in the world.
Well, yeah, and that's the whole point. I mean, the indie film industry is a community,
right.
And a lot of people forget that because we now live in a society where, you know, people measure success by likes and eyeballs on social media. So somebody makes YouTube videos and they get 1 million followers, you know, and we live in this society like this where it's instant and it's all this shit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but there is a sense of community. There has always been a sense of community in the film industry, and even it's gone away. And the Indy Brigade's job is to bring it back. So, you know, like we've got some of the top industry pros who have agreed to come and work with these vets. And, you know, the idea is we're going to build it on a horse farm. We're going to have, like I said, 2 classes of 30 guys a year for the, you know, just to kind of launch and get it going. It's all open air. There's no stuffy rooms to go sit in where you have to talk about shit. It's all open air. There's, you know, horses and the whole thing. And then we've got these pros, you know, from cinematographers to screenwriters to caterers to composers. All these people are going to come in and work with these vets over a 3-month period, so that in the 4th month we go out and make a feature film with everything they've learned. And now, you know, we've also got the people there for them to talk to clinically if anything goes. You know, if they need to talk about anything in their head,
right?
All of those people, and you know, so now we're gonna take all that stuff that the government put in their head and help them reprogram it to create. And there's a catharsis that I've personally seen that these guys go through. If you can get them to write, if you can get them to pick up a camera, there's a catharsis that goes with it, and there's a peace that they find when they get it out. And, you know, the film industry is a perfect place to get it out because you actually get it out. You get it out on paper or on film.
Yeah.
And you show it to people, and it becomes less heavy to carry because other people have now seen it and they're helping you carry.
Yeah, people are identifying with it. It's super
You know what I mean?
awesome. Yeah. Because, I mean, and the thing that blows my mind, which is so cool, is it's helping these dudes out through art. You know, a lot of times I think people forget that art is everywhere. There's so many different mediums, you know, when you're talking culinary arts, you know, if you're talking about filmmaking, it's an art. You know, when we talk about professional wrestling, it's an art form.
It's an art.
Yeah. There's a drawing.
Fucking right,
music.
it is.
Yeah, there's all this shit, and it's so cool because I mean, I'm a fucking artist. I'm a big nerd when it comes to shit like that, and I love it. I think it's great. There's no better way to express yourself than through art, you know?
Well, it's funny is like they're always the first programs cut from schools. They're the first bits of funding cut from anything that has anything creative or artistic behind it.
Yeah.
They say, we got to cut the funding for this. We got to cut the funding for that. And it's funny. At the end of the day, it's going to be the fucking artists who saved this world.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Like one way or another, it's going to be art that saves like the humanity of it all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because
we've got all of the other horrible battles and wars and everything that's happening, but it's going to be the artists who save like the humanity of it all. It's going to be the artists who care enough to stop like AI from taking over in the future. It's going to be the artists who do this stuff, man. It's going to be the artists who make people remember the beauty of the human condition.
Yeah, I totally agree.
George,
so you've been doing commercials and making your own films for a good long while now.
Yeah.
So what was some of the like biggest moments as far as like commercials that you've done or worked on that you could tell people about?
Nothing any audience today would know, man. I haven't made a commercial in a long time, but back in the end of the 90s, early 2000s, we were doing a lot of work for the cell phone companies and Sony Electronics and Verizon and all that stuff. I got to see some of my favorite part about it was seeing some of the new communications tech that everybody was. It was like the Wild West back then, Everybody was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Like everybody, like one company would be like, "Well, we have the bandwidth, but our devices suck." Another company would be like, "We have the devices, but our bandwidth sucks." And and it was like, "Well, why don't you all work together?" "No, fuck you," So it was like the Wild West. People going after these tech companies, trying to get them to sign exclusive deals with them for their hardware. And people going after communications companies to try to get exclusive seats on their satellites. And it was nuts, man. And like you talk to somebody at one of these companies on a Monday and you be going through this creative job and they'd say, "This is great. We're going to talk tomorrow." You talk to them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. "This is awesome. We love it. We're going to go. Let's get up together again on Monday." Okay. You call up Monday. "Oh no, they were fired. Here's the new person in their department." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, here's where we were. And that person saying, "Well, we're going to have to start over because you're going too fast for me now." And it was just nuts. It was literally like the Wild West, for a while there. And it was around the time that people were making money, people were building websites for $50,000, and people were, commercial. I mean, it was just nuts, man. It was like nobody knew what to do. We had all this new technology and nobody knew what to do. And then now, we've got a few people who've obviously figured it out and they've got a pretty tight grip on a lot of it. But there was a time before all these people figured out these loopholes to kind of button everything down when, like Facebook was just an idea. There was like 100 of them.
Mm-hmm.
They just happened to be the best one and win. But so a lot of the stuff I was doing was for companies like that. And a lot of these big companies, like I think probably the biggest thing that we ever did was it wasn't the biggest job, but the best thing that was closest to my heart was when we got hired to bring the premiere of my dad's Land of the Dead to the city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were, because they had New York and LA booked and all set up, and there was an organization in Pittsburgh that wanted to do one there, and they hired us to do it, and we made all these huge young guy promises, and nobody believed us, and then it turned into, I think it was called the largest entertainment-based non-sporting event in the history of the city.
That's fucking awesome.
That was pretty amazing. We had, heroes and icons fly into the city of Pittsburgh, and we had a bunch of people come over a bunch of athletes come over from like Mario Lemieux playing that night, come dark and
Nice.
crash it. It was epic, man. And it was, you look one way, there's like Quentin Tarantino, and you look next to him and there's Michael Jordan, and it's like, how the fuck?
MJ, damn. Better hide those McRibs.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was probably the craziest, one of the craziest jobs that we ever pulled off.
If you don't mind, I'd like to go into that for a second because, I'm a huge fan of a lot of your father's films. Land of the Dead really holds a special place for me, though, as being like a huge zombie guy myself.
Sure.
As being the first Romero zombie, like, and new Romero zombie. I mean, I'm 37, so I was, I was too young back in the day to see, like Day of the Dead or Dawn of the Dead, and of course Night of the Living Dead, in the theater. But I remember when Land dropped, and I was just so super stoked that it was a big Hollywood Romero film, like the next zombie Romero film that I didn't think I was ever gonna see. So when this movie dropped, like, me and a couple buddies went to see it, and I was blown away. I mean, I'm like such a nerd about it. I buy it on like DVD and Blu-ray and all that shit. And man, I thought it was great. It was everything that all the other movies were, as far as capturing that moment in time and the progression or regression, I guess you should say, of like just like humanity and where they're at and like where the zombies are at that time. And it was just it was so fucking awesome. Like that Land of the Dead. And I'm just glad that he got to have that big Hollywood moment. Now, of course, he went on to make what was it, Diary of the Dead, and what was the other one? Survival of the Dead. Yeah, which I really dig, both indie films. But this would be his last big zombie major studio film, and it was great. You had the guys from Shaun of the Dead in there, who I know they were big Romero fans, and they were super stoked, and it was very well done, man. Like, to see that, like, okay, that in that universe, after seeing Night, Day, and Dawn, and you see the progression of the zombies. And I remember some people I'd talk to, that like, oh, well, I don't forget. Well, just think about it. If that was really happening over time, and they were learning stuff. I mean, you had Bub as the prime example when in Day of the Dead, when Bub was learning, how to do all this shit. It blew me away, man. Like the continuity within that film, and I fucking love it.
Yeah, man, it was good stuff. It's funny because it was actually pretty controversial at the time when it came out among fans, if I remember properly, because there was a lot of stuff behind it. Like, he was originally going to do it in Pittsburgh, and then PA cut their tax breaks, and it was he had studio money behind it, so he had to go where there were tax breaks, and that's when he kind of became, full-on Canadian, I think, in the eyes of the world, and went to Toronto, and they made the Pittsburgh skyline digitally.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, look, Pittsburgh is one city, right? But it's a ferocious city when it comes to its fandom.
Mm-hmm.
And, that goes back to directly back to the Steelers, the Pirates, the Penguins, and my dad, and Mr. Rogers and things like that, I mean, the fandom in Pittsburgh is vicious.
Mm-hmm.
So, when the city found out and saw that, and then saw that they did the skyline, there were some things wrong with it, man, people went like ape shit over that.
Yeah.
And then there was, and then there was the diehard fans, like the guys who were alive to see Night in the theater, who, they were split 50-50 on Land. And then there was guys like your age and guys my age who, when it came out, we were just thrilled to see it because, other than the fact that, if I hadn't have been sort of his son, I would have not seen the stuff because I saw when I was my age. Mm-hmm. Parents didn't take their kids to see that stuff in the theaters when I was growing up.
Right.
So, it was the first time a zombie film by my dad was going to be in the theaters for a massive piece of his audience.
Oh,
and it was a huge deal culturally.
Yeah, I mean, they had video. I remember I still have the original Xbox game for it too, the Land of the Dead game. Man, it was. It takes me back to just talking about it, man. It takes me back to that time. It was really cool. Me and a couple buddies got really, lit up on some beer before we went in, and to go fucking see a Romero zombie film. Like, I'm not bullshitting people out there listening when I say I'm like a huge horror buff. Like, I've been watching horror since like 4 or 5. I remember my dad used to have all the old Universal Monster models that glue in the dark that you put together. And and I got started with like Freddy Krueger and another big film which kind of somewhat pertains to your dad, correlates, I guess you should say, is Return to Living Dead. You know, I mean, that was John Russo's. You know, I guess they had that split, that decision. Hey, you go make your sequels, I'll go make mine. And that's how I really got enthralled in like horror. And then Dawn of the Dead, which is, you know, all of them. Night of the Living Dead, still to this day, it's such a masterpiece because it's so visceral. It's so like, it's so real, man. Like, that's the scariest shit to me. Like, when I was a kid, I was having dreams. I was hanging out with Freddy Krueger. We were kicking it, you know, like killing people, and it was fun or whatever, you know, just having fun. But the zombie thing really just, I don't know, it did something to my psyche, man, where I got like, and I remember like living down the street from the cemetery and like, oh God, oh shit. Like, like what if dead people came out and then, you know, they're like eating us like that. It does something to you, you know, and it did for me, and it stuck. And so, you know, to go from night to dawn and the day, and personally, I think for a long time, dawn was my favorite, but I just, man, I think out of all of them now, I'd have to go with Day of the Dead. That's
Yeah.
You know, that's really a joke on I fucking love that shit, dude.
Well, no, you know, I mean, the thing is about Night of the Living Dead, man, is that movie didn't give a fuck.
Right.
Before movies didn't give a fuck.
Right. And it was so early on, and it was great. And you had African American cast in the lead, which was very taboo back in the day. Your father was tackling political and social issues within his movies. And it was fucking awesome. Like, if you got it great. Maybe you learned something from it, maybe it inspired people, but I always loved that, and everything he did, it kind of had that. I mean, another one of my favorite movies that a lot of people may not know that your father did was Bruiser. I really dig that movie. It's it had the Misfits in it, and he did I believe he directed that video they did, the what the fuck was that? The Scream video. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So, you know, shit like that, super cool, man. Like, how was that, like, kind of like growing up, I mean, within that, you know, being the son, George Romero, like, how was that for you? What was that experience like? Like, did you know early on that, like, hey, my dad's this badass filmmaker and this is something I want to do, or?
No, it wasn't anything like that, man. I was, my parents split when I was very young, and my exposure to him was when we would spend time together, either, you know, at his place in Pittsburgh or in LA, or a few times in New York when I was younger. You know, but we would, you know, it was good, man. You know, it was what it was. You know, he obviously inspired me. I spent a lot of time on a lot of his sets when I was very young, and you know, I saw what he was doing, and I think it was probably more of his fuck you attitude that inspired me more than anything, because, you know, it was, in the early days, he was exactly what you wanted your hero artists to be. Yeah. He was just as radical as Hunter S. Thompson, and just as fucking out there as Burroughs. Yes. And he just did it with a camera, and, you know, and screenplays as opposed to books or whatever, you know, and that was his thing. And he was just as much of a, you know, fuck the system kind of artist as every single other artist who ever inspired me reading or watching growing up. Right. And, you know, I mean, so, and then to look at the stuff that he did and to watch how he affected an entire culture, you know, obviously it's something I nothing to say except how proud I am to be his son for that. You know, I mean, like, and look, when you start out, you're trying to, you know, and everybody says, oh, you're George's kid, you start going, well, I'm more than that, or I'm different than that, blah, 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 and I got to try to figure out my own thing, and that's a thing for a while, and then you do it, and, you know, and it turns into this crazy life, man, you know, and you think it's a shadow in the beginning, and you realize it's not a shadow the older you get. You realize that it's, you know, it's truly a gorgeous, beautiful legacy that somebody has to protect and guard. And So I'm doing my best, and that's what the Romero Pictures brand is about. And the Indy Brigade, you know, the spirit in which he did his stuff, and the spirit in which all of them did Night, and everything that my father did after that too. You know, I mean, it was punk rock, man. It was as punk rock as you could get.
Before there was punk rock.
That's what independent film is, and that's what independent music is to me.
Yeah.
And that's why that is with Romero Pictures, and this George Romero. It's that spirit is one that will live on, hopefully, well after I kick it.
Fuck yeah, man! So glad to hear that. You were also a part of a. I was looking online. What's this video game? Weren't you developing or you did for PC, like a zombie game?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. This is one of those tales that I kind of go into some detail about within the Brigade community because it's a huge learning experience, you know. It was a company that had put out some games before and came to me and said, we want to do this, we want to do that. And you say, great, great, great. And you have lawyers look at everything and you sign the contracts and then you get into it and it's not what you think it is. And then instead of paying you, the company tells you they're going to put the game out for free now, so they don't owe you any money after you've signed everything, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't really, that's basically my involvement. It was supposed to be something that it wasn't, and I think that as soon as it came out, fans realized that. So
I mean,
it's one of those things in my past that didn't work out the way I thought it was going to.
Now, would you be open to doing something like that in the future? Obviously, if all the business lines up and everything's, fucking copacetic.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we've got a project I'm developing called Rise that I developed under the name Origins for many years, and changed the name to Rise recently last year. And it's essentially sort of my origin story for my dad's early work. And around it, we've developed everything from a tabletop role-playing game to video games, mobile games. It's a full-on property. And it started out as just an idea for a movie. And, my dad and I were actually going to do it together at one point. And then, things started going bad, and now obviously he's not here, so that'll never happen.
Right.
So it's up to me to make sure that it gets done with as much respect and honor towards the legacy that the man created as humanly possible. So
that's super awesome.
That's that project. Yeah, and I'm starting to develop like production diaries and basically full accountings of the processes that I've been going through with a bunch of these projects for the past several years.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make all of those available on the RomeroPictures.com website as well. Some of it will be obviously free. Some of it won't be free because some of it's going to be more geared toward the our brigade community as strict learning processes.
Right.
And then eventually, hopefully, we'll compile all of that into some sort of online class, in the next couple of years. But for now, we're not charging any money for anything like that. It's just literally in the spirit of the independent. It's just fuck you. I have this knowledge. Let's put it out in the world, man. Fuck it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to piss off a lot of people, but fuck.
Yeah, hey, you know what I said? Fuck them. Here's a quick question for you, because I really got wrapped up into the. A lot of people may or may not know this. For you comic geeks out there, I love you, by the way. Your dad actually did within the past 5-6 years, worked with Marvel on a couple of series of comic books, which I really, really enjoyed. Empire of the Dead was one of them, where it was set up with like basically vampires were the government. They were running the town and everything, but there were still zombies mixed into it. And man, that series was so fucking awesome. You think there is any possibility of something like that maybe working its way into like a future feature film or anything like that?
I have no idea. I didn't get near any of that. And I know it never really found an audience. So who knows, man?
Pretty sad because
Hollywood has turned more obscure things into large properties.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Tell me about it. Well,
you know,
I mean,
there's no telling when it comes
Yeah.
to that. I don't have any idea.
anymore, though, it's like all these fucking remakes and, oh, God,
Mhm.
just after remake after remake after remake. How many Spider-Mans how many times we need to remake that or any of this shit, really? You know, that's what kind of pisses me off more than not. It's like, it seems like a lot of these huge studios don't want to take a chance on someone independent and creative that has like an original idea. It's like, we know we can make a money with the It franchise. Let's fucking remake it.
Yeah, it's all an algorithm now, you know? I mean, they
Yeah,
know their
yeah.
legal teams can sit down and fill out a spreadsheet and say, well, we've got
Easy
this
money.
script and it has this many pages and this many, you know, female characters and this many male characters and this many this characters and,
Mhm.
you know, and, you know, this spreadsheet tells me that if we release this film between August and, you know, September of 2024, we'll make $180 million. Okay, let's make it.
Is everything just
You
too
know,
everything's too business now, I guess, you know? I don't
yeah.
really know how else to fucking do it. And I love that you said algorithm, because that's the one thing that I fucking hate, especially with doing the podcast and everything. Is like, the algorithms, again, people to follow you. And it's so hard sometimes. I mean, you could have the best content in the world, but if no one's fucking interacting, it's like, who gives a fuck? You know, like, it's so hard for
Well,
some
yeah.
people to click a button that, you know, to like it. They may actually enjoy it or they may listen, but they will not. And I repeat, they will not fucking share it. They will not like it. It costs them nothing to do it. You know, I just don't get it. I don't fucking
I don't get it either, man, you know, and it's fucked up too, because if you know, doing what you do, and now I've got this podcast we just launched, so
Mhm.
I'm like, you know, I'm like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind over here. I'm like drawing notes and shit on the window about how podcasts, okay, the microphone goes here.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's like that. And anyway, so I'm researching and learning about all this algorithm shit. And, you know, now there's this new Facebook algorithm where they're going to stop recording just plain old thumbs up likes toward your organic reach, because it doesn't take enough effort. So they're only going to track and incorporate anything that's more than a like. So, you know how you got to like hold the button and then it turns into the other things, and you smiley face or sad face or the heart or whatever. Those are the only things it's going to track and count toward your organic reach. So if you're somebody out there who's trying to just do it hardcore and not spend any money on Google ads or Facebook ads because you don't have the money yet, you know, you rely on that organic reach, and now they're putting more handcuffs on that organic reach because they're trying to shove everybody toward this pay for ads.
Exactly. I've been saying it for a long time, and I'll tell you this, George. I've gotten fucking thrown in Facebook jail, I guess we'll call it, so many times. And I'll give you an example. So when we do weekly episodes that drop every Wednesday, I will make a post on our Facebook, Juice Pro Wrestling, check it out. And when I do that post, I do one whole fucking thing where it talks about the outline of what the episode's about, yada, 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 who's involved. I share it to like the 30 groups that I'm a part of that relate to that topic, which in that case would be pro wrestling. I share it once. I am by no means fucking spamming people. It's one time to each of those 30 groups. Well, next thing you know, I can't fucking post to any groups unless it's a group I created, because Facebook's like, you didn't say the magic word. Because I didn't buy shit. So to counteract that for a long time, because I was starting to get really pissed, I'd pay for a couple ads here and there. And to be honest with you, I mean, it helps a little bit. I mean, I guess you got to be a little more savvy on that. But me personally, I'm old school, man. I'm fucking punk rock. I believe in doing it the hard way and just grinding and getting it out there, and people just finding it naturally through, all the efforts that you've done, not because some platform is, Xing you out because you don't fit the fucking algorithm or you're not paying. So I did do a couple ads, and they kept on fucking doing it. And so I gave them their little rebuttal when it's like, well, you can dispute this. And I was like, I bared it all out there. It's like, hey, Facebook, what the fuck? I pay for your fucking ads. I'm not spamming people. This is bullshit. I'll just, guess what? I'll go to another platform and I will pay them to fucking run my shit if this is how it's going to be. And now,
Right.
now it hasn't been so much, but it took me, I don't know how many of those I wrote, George. Like, there were so damn many. It was so frustrating because for people who are trying to do things, that shit's such a business now. And I can't be a guy, like an independent creator or a podcaster or whatever the fuck I am, and get my shit out there because, big brother, big business says I can't do it because I'm not giving them any money. It's
right.
just, man, it really grinds my fucking gears.
Well, listen, it's got to come down to community, right? I mean,
yeah.
if you think about when pop culture was pop culture, right? Like
Right.
back when things were starting that are now considered pop culture. We'll go back to the 60s, right?
Mhm.
We didn't have giant corporations out there telling you everywhere you turned what was acceptable content and what was not acceptable content.
Right.
People found shit, and we only had 3 fucking channels on TV, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a 70s kid, so it's not like we had 3,000 cable channels advertising the same damn Amazon commercial every commercial break, right?
Oh,
I mean, you found stuff because people went to libraries and read and told people about things and sat around and passed on knowledge verbally, through this thing called talking.
Yeah.
And, and they would write these things called letters. And, it was, that was how information got shared. And then there were the small community underground comic shops and music shops,
Yes.
and the places where you went to get your fucking Ultraman VHS tapes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how you found out. And when you were in there, if somebody had on the same, fucking Misfits patch that you had on, you would
Yeah.
talk to them, and then you made a friend in the store, and then you guys talked about things, and odds are one of you would say, "Hey, have you seen this yet?" "No." "Have you seen this yet?" "No." "Well, I'm going to go check those out."
Right.
And then that's how it spread. And that, in theory, is what social media is supposed to do, but it happens so fast on such a massive level, the effect is
robotic.
largely lost.
It's so robotic. And how do you say
Cold?
Yeah, but there's there's a specific word I'm not finding because I'm butt heavy right now. I don't want to say synthetic, but it's like it's just lost. It's emotionless. It's like you're saying that feeling when you do find. I totally relate to everything you just said because I was that guy and that kid. I mean, we even had that as far back. Well, it's not really that far, but I mean, we'll go back 20 years ago. The late 90s and early 2000s, where that was still somewhat there. You go and to a CD shop or record shop and pick out some shit and see some guy that, like you said, with a Misfits or Cannibal Corpse shirt on. It's like, oh, hey, dude, what's up? You start talking.
Yeah. You'd be like, Cannibal Corpse. Cool.
Yeah.
Smash face. And they'd be like, yeah, man, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you ever listen to Napalm Death? Well, yes, I have. And now it's just, man, it's so, I think the problem is everything's just so out there and so readily available that if this makes sense, that somehow no one gives a fuck. Because it's just all right there.
The taboo became the norm, and now there is no taboo anymore.
Yeah,
that's true. There's almost no taboo anymore. But I do think
that game in the 90s.
I do think we're in a quickly adjustment period where spaces like you've created with Indy Brigade, and then we have our own up here in Hobart. We have a little bookstore nearby.
Plug it.
Green Door Books. There's also other places. There's art houses, like in Chicago. There's maker spaces.
Oh, yeah.
There's all these different community groups where people are doing that on. I don't know if grassroots is the proper term, but it's similar. Where like for example, you or us or whoever, we find 5 or 10 people that are into the same thing, and we slowly start to build that community. I think those things are popping up. We're adjusting, but the social media stuff is so prevalent. Everybody, my phone is attached at my hip 24 hours a day. And for no reason at all, I check my Instagram 100 times a day. I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't know what I want from it, but I do it. And, their formula, their algorithm for getting me addicted to these things is perfect and it works and everybody is into it. You know, most news sources now have to mention Twitter. Like, hey, somebody on Twitter blew a fart, and we're going to reference that when we talk about the news.
I fucking hate
and
it.
like all of that shit. I think it's an adjustment process. But like I said, like anytime we get a chance to promote or talk about anybody that's doing stuff that's similar to what you're doing, any cool new podcasts, I've recently. You know, Wallace is obsessed with like all different types of musical genres, comic books, different pop culture things, but pro wrestling. And through his influence, I've gone to a bunch of independent wrestling shows, and even that's its own culture that's amazing. Everybody's cool. Some people are uncomfortable. If you're just some dorky kid that wants to go watch wrestling and you walk into this space, you are welcome with open arms, which is awesome. You know, because I think you are right. There is no such thing as taboo, but what is a cool thing is that you can find globally at least 1,000 people that are into whatever weird ass shit or mainstream shit that you're into. You can find peers.
That's right.
If you like licking toes, there's probably 1,000 other people.
Yes,
that
there's
websites. Smell your
websites.
feet. You know, get on some weird fetish.
It's
shit.
a cool time. It's just some parts are annoying. Like the mainstream shit right now is incredibly annoying. Because what's mainstream?
Well, the mainstream has always historically been 5 to 7 years behind the fringe, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, then the mainstream catches on and says, "Hey, maybe we should, fucking make a $200 million zombie movie."
Yeah.
And
no shit.
And that was a lot longer than 7 years. But I mean, if you think about it, it's 5 to 7 years behind the general trends of kind of the fringe, right, or the outlaw side of things. And that stuff gets picked up by the mainstream, and they pick one or two people from the fringe to kind of like put them out on these pedestals in front and say, "Hey, we're throwing big mainstream money behind us, but it's cool because we got these two folks here, and they're like you guys, so they legitimize us." And then
nothing like Ethan Hawke.
Then you get some of these sort of overly priced studio-ish independent films that are waved around behind the faces of these newly mainstream folks, and that's what happens. And then people like us end up going, "Man, these movies fucking suck." And
it stinks.
And then these conversations become cyclical, right?
Yeah.
So at some point, we've got to stop. Like, what did I say? Well, who is it? Edison? I said the definition of insanity thing, doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, right? There's that. And that's all that this whole battle between indie and mainstream has been forever. And so at some point, we indies, we have to start realizing that this argument has been created by the mainstream to fuel the mainstream by fueling anger among indies against the mainstream. And it's the ultimate subversive fucking marketing project that has ever happened. And all they do is perpetuate the cyclical conversation that's had for generations and generations. And there's got to come a time when somebody's got to draw a line in the sand and say, "Look, for now and forever forth, this will be the line between indie and mainstream." And that goes across all the creative arts. Would everybody on the planet who makes a movie love to have a Universal logo in their opening credits? Absolutely. Is that a realistic goal? Absolutely not. You know what I mean? So if you're going to make for the sake of making, if you want to make this shit just to go get rich, there's plenty of ways to sell out. If you have to do this shit because you'll go crazy otherwise, there needs to be a more levelized, pressurized area for it, I think.
That's the part where I think nowadays, with the negativity of social media, I actually think with the openness of the internet, that it's less. There's less lunacy to going after your craft with everything you've got. Like it's less. You can find other people that will help you. You can find like-minded individuals. That's what's awesome about nowadays. You get full access to everything, but you also get full access to everyone if you can find those people.
Yeah.
So. It is an awesome time if you're a creative person. It always has been, because creativity is the, it's the rainbow of life or whatever bullshit some people might say. But, I know with us, we always go after and say, like what you like, man. Like, I don't want to hear people bitching about things. There's times for that stuff. But, if you know what you like, do that thing you like.
Yeah.
You
Accentuate the goods, hide the negatives. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to hear about people.
God knows there's going to be 1,000 people on the internet who like it too.
Yeah.
You could probably, you could go from being that weird guy in the neighborhood to,
You get a
having
big group
1,000
of
friends.
weirdos, yeah.
To being that weird guy having a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Oh, man.
So,
Yeah, shout out to Mr. Rogers. I loved Mr. Rogers as a kid. So
yeah, man, that was Pittsburgh all the way.
Yeah.
My dad, and one of my happiest things to say is my dad and I were friends when I was a kid.
No shit.
I mean, I don't know how close or anything, but it was pretty cool. I got the real Mr. Rogers a few times in my life, and that was pretty amazing.
Fred Rogers, dude, that's awesome. I'm kind of stoked to see. Tom Hanks. I mean, he's a solid ass actor. He gets all those juicy roles. I'm really
I
kind
saw somewhere where they're saying that he's like Mr. Rogers' sixth cousin or something like that. I don't know if that's like one of those clickbait things or if it's if it's legit, but it's legit, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, if it is legit, but that's probably the algorithm strikes again. Fuck the algorithm. God damn it.
Hey, actually, that's a really good fucking title for a movie. The algorithm.
That is good. Damn it, George. You better. Hey, when we get off here, you better send me a contract or something. At least
let me just go write it up real quick.
Right, on a piece of toilet paper, like a bar napkin. Here, I even signed it. He just wiped his ass with this thing. Well, George, I'm glad.
I'll give you the kiss of death in every Hollywood meeting. If anybody ever says this to you, just don't ever expect to hear from them again. Anybody ever says, "Man, this is a no-brainer," you will never ever hear from them again.
Thanks for the I'm gonna try to stay far, far away from Hollywood. I don't think I could handle that. I don't think I could. Not that I couldn't be a person if I had success that couldn't handle success, but I hate a lot of people. I try not to let that come out in the show because I do, like I just said, accentuate the positives, hide the negatives. There are a lot of good people out there, but like when we're talking with the internet and everything, there's a lot of fucking turd cutters out there too. Like
yeah, man.
I can't get over why some people are just so stuck on stupid, and those are the people I hate. You don't have to be a certain race or creed or any of that bullshit because you're all equally hated if you're a dumbass. That's just where I'm at, and people may hear this and may not fucking like it, but it is the goddamn truth. So just accept it. Be a better fucking person. You goddamn motherfucker! Ah! Sorry, I had to get that out.
It's not hard to be decent.
No.
Hell, it's not even hard to be good, to be a good person, but I don't even give people that much credit. It's not hard to be decent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I love it. I love it here in Kentucky, man. It's the kind of place where your neighbors come help you if you need it,
Yeah.
But there's so much. It's just not. It's not that hard to just be. All you have to do is
let's be
take
honest,
the bar
George.
of being a good person and lower it to decent, and it's not that difficult. You don't have to knock people down to walk through the doors of Walmart. You don't have to
yeah, that's...
you know what I mean? Just be okay. It's not hard. There was a time not long ago when even people who hated each other still had some social grace.
Yeah.
And there's no social grace anymore.
Well, it's pretty sad when it takes something like a 9/11 to happen for people to be, oh, hey, wait, you're cool. We're all American. Let's get together. Like, why the fuck does that have to happen for people to fucking get along, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It's just not difficult, man. I mean, if I see somebody, if I'm walking into a store and there's somebody 5 feet behind me, I wait a second and I leave the door open and hold it for a second. I got yelled at for doing that shit in LA, but in Kentucky you get, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I that's how I was raised in the Pittsburgh sort of thing. And it's just
common courtesy, man.
Yeah, social fucking grace is not that hard. You know, we all signed this contract when we were born, even though we didn't have a choice to sign it. We signed this social fucking contract. And with people just being as shitty as they are to each other, it's just, you know, it sucks, man. Just be a decent person. It's not that hard.
Yeah. I'm not religious, man, but I do believe in the golden rule. Treat people how you want to be treated. And if you want to be treated like shit, then I can't help
and
you.
if that's your thing, that you enjoy being treated like shit, then go find somebody on the internet to treat you like shit. It's not hard.
Yeah, go see what are those people called that wear like the gimp suits and they fucking whip you and shit. You know, go try that on for size. Hey George, let everybody know where they can find you at online.
Anybody who's interested can find links to everything at RomeroPictures.com. We've got the production company. We've got the Indy Brigade links there. You can find us on YouTube. It's all linked from RomeroPictures.com to make it easy to find. All of our social media is linked at the bottom of every page. And then we've even got a little woodshop business. I'm doing some production and prop design sort of on the low-key side of things most of my life. And my wife last year convinced me to kind of go public with it. So we've even got links to our woodworking stuff that's out there on RomeroPictures.com if anybody's interested. And we will be launching some Veterans Compound stuff soon, but that's all going to link from Romero Pictures too. So the easiest thing for me to say to people is RomeroPictures.com, and that's RomeroPictures.com.
Hey, if we say it 7 times, people will never forget. Romero.
That's true.
At least that's what they tell me. Sret was over here getting sprung, by the way, because he's a woodsmith himself. So
Oh yeah.
He built this fine table that we're podcasting from at the moment. So yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, he had a big smile on his face when you brought your woodworking business up.
Yeah, man, check it out. There's a link. It says McKim. It's my grandfather on my mother's side. My mom's maiden name was McKim, and we come from the Scottish McKims, and like several generations, man, been woodworking and shit. My granddad taught me this stuff when I was started teaching me woodworking when I was 7 years old, man. Been doing it my whole life.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Check it out.
I will.
Yeah.
Well, George, I'd like to thank you for coming on and sharing all your fucking lovely information, your insight on the world, sharing your product with everybody. We're going to have to do this again sometime, whether you like it or not.
Hey, man, I would love it. And you guys need to come get in on the brigade, man.
Yes.
You guys have the true punk rock spirit of the indie, man. You guys need to come, participate. So I'll make sure that, we got to get you guys to come on and we do a live video thing every other Friday, but we're about to add a second one in every other. So we'll be doing a show every week, but every other week we're going to start doing Q&As with industry pros and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I think we're going to try. I think we're trying to kick off the first one of those on Black Friday, actually, because what would you rather do? Go to Walmart for Black Friday and get trampled, or listen to my dumb ass ramble about shit?
I'd like to do both. I'd like to trample people just for the sake of it, because it's like, what are you doing? Have you ever heard of online shopping? But man, I mean, realistically, we're up here in Northwest Indiana. We're 30 minutes out from Chicago. I mean, a trip down towards you ain't that far at all. 5-6 hours, maybe 7.
Cool, man.
So
one of the things that's coming soon, hopefully by spring, I've tried to get the stuff off the ground a few times, but I think it's going to work this time. Hopefully by spring, we're going to be starting to do some live events down in Lexington. So you guys will definitely have to come down, do some episodes from there.
Oh yeah,
and hang out and be part of that shit, man, because it's going to be a lot of fun.
For sure, man. I gotta get my band Handsome Prick down there too. We got to get some good shit. I mean,
yeah, man.
You like?
Well, part of what I want to do is showcase a lot of local bands, and a lot of indie bands that need another outlet,
Yeah.
And hopefully we can create one of those outlets. I'm trying to put together a live event. It'll be a once a month thing during the good weather. That'll be, a pretty live event with bands and vendors and stuff like that,
and maybe some outside shit. We've actually played this thing called Full Terror Assault. It's in Cave and Rock, Illinois. They do it every year, and it's it's like an open air festival. It's like a 3-day open air festival at, like I said, Cave and Rock, Illinois. You camp out, and there's like 70 fucking bands. We've been fortunate enough to play it a couple times. One time, I unfortunately got a tick on my bowels. It wasn't fun, but man,
well, yeah, this whole thing's going to be outside, man. I mean, there's no point in doing something in the good weather in Kentucky if you can't look at fucking God's country while you do it, right?
Oh man, it's great. I love the atmosphere, but I mean, what I'm getting at is even have like a jumbotron or something out there. Show some of your motherfucking movies, George. Come on.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, we're gonna do it up. So I mean, we're working on plans for that now, and hopefully we'll be launching that stuff, like I said, as early in the spring as possible, because we want to do as many as possible next year. And it's going to be very low key, but it's going to be very high energy. So it's going to be one of those things that people aren't going to really know what it is until they kind of go by it, and they're going to see it and be like, what the fuck is that? We need to go over there. So
yeah, I love it.
It'll be pretty cool. You guys got to come be part of that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
thank you guys so much for having me on, man. It's been fun.
No problem. Anytime, man. We're going to keep in touch. I'm going to go buy some of your merch, not because you forced me to, but because
cool
I fucking
hats.
want to. No algorithm told me to do that.
That's right. And, well, actually, technically, you've been talking to an algorithm this whole time.
Uh-oh. Oh, my God. I knew something was off. Fuck. I've been duped. God damn it. Everybody, hey, George, much respect to you and everything you got going on, and your father, obviously. Everybody, check out George C. Romero, Indy Brigade. You got to get on it. And there's one more thing you got to do for us. For me and Sretton, you got to wet 'em up, wet 'em up, wet 'em up. I'm so wet for George C. Romero.
You gonna do sex to me?